program, our weekly sadhana program of hearing and chanting, which is the basis of our spiritual practice of bhakti yoga, and especially the fact that we're reading, as we all know, from the original unedited, unchanged books of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, our founder of our movement and our Acharya, our guru. And it is very important that we maintain this legacy of him in a key role in the spreading of the Sankirtan movement. Recently, we've been getting so many messages from other people in regards to their preaching of the Krishna Consciousness movement, which is quite different than the particular methodology that Srila Prabhupada introduced himself personally and taught us to do the same thing. There's some of the members of the original or of the ISKCON movement, they become more like motivational speakers. It's quite interesting. Even the people that I'm sending out, it gets delivered into my Facebook box. And it's quite extraordinary because rather than having to explain to people what the problems are with the ISKCON group, all you have to do is look at this video. These not just one, multiple videos of these people presenting this Tony Robbins style preaching. It's quite extraordinary. And it is interesting to note, Prabhus, that these people are accepting the role as Diksha gurus. So they don't mention Krishna. They don't mention Lord Chaitanya. They don't mention the chanting of Hare Krishna. They don't relate to anything based on Krishna conscious philosophy. It's sort of like a logical, common sense explanation of how to have a good day. It's quite unfortunate. And recently I've been seeing these pictures of another of these, I'm sorry for bringing it up, but it's on the top of my mind, and of a particular devotee in the States he was called a sannyasi. Okay. Goswami. Now, Prabhupada, I had the same experience with Ban Maharaj, myself personally, in Toronto. So Ban Maharaj, he came to Toronto in 1974. For those that are new to this group, Ban Maharaj was a key member of the Gaudiya Math. And he had written a book, he had written a translation of Nectar of Devotion. I used to have a copy of it back then. Because I joined the mission, we didn't have Nectar of Devotion. And so it was like, I got the book and we read it, and it gave us an insight that Ban Maharaj was some kind of, scholar devotee type thing. And he came to Toronto on the invitation of a professor from the University of Toronto, Joseph O'Connell, Professor Joseph O'Connell, who's now passed away. But he was in charge of Vaishnava studies at the University of Toronto. And if you study some of the history of our Prabhupada's pastimes, and when Joseph O'Connell, when Prabhupada came to Toronto, when we opened the 243 Avenue Road Temple, Joe O'Connell came to visit Prabhupada, and there was some interesting discussions with him, etc. But at any rate, Joseph O'Connell had invited Bon Maharaj prior to that. In 1974, he invited him to come to Toronto to speak at his classes. And he called myself and my godbrother at the time, Uttama Shloka, to come and visit him at his residence. He was staying with Joseph O'Connell at his house. Okay, so we went there. And we were polite and courteous, of course, because that is the relationship that you should have with the godbrothers of your spiritual master. It's an etiquette. Unfortunately, nowadays, a lot of these so-called gurus that you have, their disciples are extremely disrespectful to the Prabhupada disciples, extremely arrogant. A lot of times I get confronted by them, and I ask them, these disciples of these so-called gurus, I ask them, who is your guru? They never tell me. I tell them, please, let me know who your guru is so I can call him up and talk to him about the way you're talking to us. This is not the way that proper etiquette is in Vaishnava circles. So anyway, getting back to the story. So Bon Maharaj was invited by us to come and speak at the temple. We were innocent, by the way. We had no idea that this wasn't a good idea. It wasn't. And it proved to be as such. And so he came on the Sunday to the Toronto. We were on Gerrard Street, 187 Gerrard Street. We had a very sort of a dynamic temple at the time. In one house, there was about 40 of us living in one house in Cabbagetown. So, and we had the most fired up kirtans. It was just really a great time for us. Myself and Uttama were musicians, and we were driving the kirtan in a very coordinated and, explosive manner. So anyway, Bon Maharaj comes, he starts to give this lecture, and Prabhu, then he starts crying in front of the deities, like exhibiting symptoms of love of Godhead, and weeping in front of Radha Kirchur Gopinath. So all of us, all the brahmacharis and that, I think there was about 16 of us, we all got up and walked out of the temple and left him in the room with whoever the guests were, because we thought, this is a mistake. And then Prabhupada found out about it. And he sent me a very famous letter, as you all know, or some of you may know, excuse me. And he said, do not, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, do not associate with my godbrothers, have nothing to do with them. So it was an instruction that wasn't just sent to me, but it was sent as a directive to all of his disciples. Very, very simple thing. But after that, subsequently, I got a phone call from his secretary. And his secretary had all these questions to ask us. He asked, and it's interesting to note these questions. So Prabhupada asked me through his secretary, was he wearing tilak? No. Was he wearing neck beads? By the chance, he wasn't. Did he have a sika? No. His hair was completely shaved, bald, like a Mayavadi. Did he have a danda? No. Did he have a bead bag? No, we didn't see one, visibly when we were with him. So, like that, Prabhupada was inquiring to see his conduct, the way he was acting. And in this way, of course, By the way, back then we were very innocent. We really didn't really, figure it out. It's 1974, so we're just learning about the philosophy. And so, but Prabhupada was studying his character to see where he was at and to understand how he should be handled in dealing with us. And like I said, subsequently, a letter was sent out, don't deal with my God brothers. So this is a very interesting lesson for all of us. So recently I saw a photograph of one of these Goswamis from the States. And he was the one that was involved in replacing Pradyumna in the presentation of the Bhagavatam. So he's got shorts on. Okay, shorts and a t-shirt, a Ralph Lauren t-shirt. Okay, I get that. No tilak, no neck beads, no bead bag, no danda, nothing to resemble a devotee of Krishna. What to speak of a sannyasi in the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he's going around propagating his so-called Krishna West philosophy as an alternative to the Sankirtan mission that Srila Prabhupada set up for all of us to follow. So it's very, very enlightening for all of us. Some people say, oh, you're criticizing people. No, we're analyzing the situation, we're seeing the reality, and then we're making a conscious decision not to participate in deviant policies established by motivated individuals who are only interested in profit, adoration, and distinction. This is going on in the name of the Sankirtan movement. And this is very unfortunate. So today, I wasn't able to pass on the diaries from Srila Prabhupada for this morning's session because Vinkat. Oh, there he is there. I apologize. There he is. I didn't pass it on, but I've gone past my time for speaking. So what we'll do is we'll go directly now and carry on with the diaries tomorrow. And we'll go on with the chanting of Jaya Radha Madhava by Srila Prabhupada, and then the class with His Grace Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, this morning's Bhagavad-gītā As It Is, reading and discussion. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Sai. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Hare Sadasamaja Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se Gaur Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Radha Krishna Gaur Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giridham ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Swami Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Swami Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Anvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitam Shcha E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Srimad Bhagavad-gītā. We are reading from the 1972 Macmillan edition, the unedited, non-adulterated version. Today we will be reading from chapter 9, text 27, all synonyms, translations and purports by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupāda, Founder-Ācārya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. Today we'll be reading text 27 and 28 and then discussion. Yat karoshi yadashnasi yasjuhosi dadati yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madarpanam yat what karoshi you do yat whatever ashnasi you eat yat whatever juhoshi you offer dadasi you give away yat whatever yat whatever tapasyasi austerities you perform, Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, tat that kurushva make, mat unto me, arpanam offering. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O son of Kunti, all that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. Purport. Thus it is the duty of everyone to mold his life in such a way that he will not forget Krishna in any circumstance. Everyone has to work for maintenance of his body and soul together, and Krishna recommends herein that one should work for him. Everyone has to eat something to live. Therefore, he should accept the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna. Any civilized man has to perform some religious ritualistic ceremonies. Therefore, Krishna recommends, do it for me. And this is called archana. Everyone has a tendency to give something in charity. Krishna says, give it to me. And this means that all surplus money accumulated should be utilized in furthering the Krishna consciousness movement. Nowadays, people are very much inclined to the meditational process, which is not practical in this age. But if anyone practices meditating on Krishna 24 hours by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra around his beads, is surely the greatest yogi, as substantiated by the 6th chapter of Bhagavad-gītā. Text 28. Shubha Shubha Phalerevam Mokshyase Karma Bandhanaihi Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma Vimukto Mam Upeshyasi. Shubha, good. Ashubha, evil. Phalai, results. Evam, thus. Mokshyase, free. Karma, action. Bandhanai, bondage. Sannyasa, of renunciation. Yoga, the yoga. Yukta Atma, having the mind firmly set on. Vimuktaha, liberated. Mam, to me. Upeshyasi, you will attain. Translation. In this way, you will be freed from all reactions to good and evil deeds. And by this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. Purport. One who acts in Krishna consciousness under superior direction is called yukta. The technical term is yukta vairagya. This is further explained by Rupa Goswami as follows. Rupa Goswami says that as long as we are in this material world, we have to act. We cannot cease acting. Therefore, if actions are performed and the fruits are given to Krishna, then that is called yukta vairagya. Actually situated in renunciation, such activities clear the mirror of the mind. And as the actor gradually makes progress in spiritual realization, he becomes completely surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, at the end, he becomes liberated. And this liberation is also specified. By this liberation, he does not become one with the Brahma Jyoti, but rather enters into the planet of the Supreme Lord. It is clearly mentioned here, Mam Upeshyasi, he comes to me, back home, back to Godhead. There are 5 different stages of liberation. And here it is specified that the devotee, who has always lived his lifetime here under the direction of the Supreme Lord, as stated, has evolved to the point where he can, after quitting this body, go back to Godhead and engage directly in the association of the Supreme Lord. Anyone who has no other interest but to dedicate his life to the service of the Lord is actually a sannyasi. Such a person always thinks of himself as an eternal servant, dependent on the supreme will of the Lord. As such, whatever he does it for the benefit of the Lord. Whatever action he performs it as service to the Lord. He does not give serious attention to the fruitive activities or prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas. For ordinary persons, it is obligatory to execute the prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas, but although a pure devotee who is completely engaged in the service of the Lord may sometimes appear to go against the prescribed Vedic duties, actually it is not so. It is said, therefore, by Vaishnava authorities that even the most intelligent person cannot understand the plans and activities of a pure devotee. The exact words are Vaishnava Kriya Mudra Vigye Nabhujaya. A person who is thus always engaged in the service of the Lord, or is always thinking and planning how to serve the Lord, is to be considered completely liberated at present and in the future. His going home back to Godhead is guaranteed. He is above all materialistic criticism, just as Krishna is above all criticism. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. I offer my respectful obeisances. We all offer our respectful obeisances to our spiritual master, who has opened our eyes from the darkness of ignorance with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. Namaom Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Bhagavad-vandanam khadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sarkara Yuktam Kadatehi Visheshataham Adadana Strinam Danter Idam Yachi Punaha Punaha Srimad Rupa Padam Bhoja Dhulishyam Janma Janmani Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Sri Rup Sanatana Bhatta Raghunata Sri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunata. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So these two verses of Bhagavad-gītā are very important. Lord Krishna here is explaining practically how to render service unto him and what will be the result of such service. In many places in Bhagavad-gītā, Lord Krishna explains that if one engages in loving devotional service to him at the end of his life, he goes back home, back to Godhead. Now here, Lord Krishna breaks it down in text number 27, very nicely. All that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all austerities that you may perform, should be done as an offering unto me. Everyone is familiar with the famous verse in the 18th chapter, where Krishna describes Sarva Dharman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. That is, surrender all of your activities, abandon all of your attachment, and surrender to me. And Krishna explains that if you do this, Masuchaha, you don't have to worry about your problems, your anxieties, your suffering, your sinful activities. Krishna Prabhupada, Masuchaha, do not worry. Now Krishna here is giving a very practical. Last week we were discussing if one offers to love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, Krishna will accept it. Now there's been a lot of discussion amongst different devotees about the process of offering bhoga or foodstuff to Lord Krishna. As many of you know, and assuming that most of you know, most probably all of you know, during the manifested presence of Srila Prabhupada, His Divine Grace taught the offering in a specific way, in a specific manner. How devotees, how Vaishnava devotees, or even aspiring Vaishnavas, should offer their foodstuffs to Lord Chaitanya, to Lord Krishna. Prabhupada was very specific about this. In the beginning, he gave letters as far back as 1967, 1968, the various prayers which should be used, because up till 1969, the first prayer that we had for Srila Prabhupada was the Namam Vishnu Padaya prayer, which is a very simple prayer in Sanskrit, offering respectful obeisances, respectful homages to Srila Prabhupada. And in 1969, around 1968, devotees in New York asked him whether or not a spiritual master should be addressed with a specific title. And Prabhupada never demanded or requested that he be called Prabhupada. But when devotees asked him whether or not he should ask a respectful title, Prabhupada explained that it is the policy in our sampradaya that certain spiritual masters like Rupa Goswami, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, they're addressed by the word Prabhupada, that one as whose lotus feet all the other Prabhus offer obeisances. So he explained to the devotees that they could use that mantra, Namaste Saraswati Devi. So as far back as 1968, in a letter to one Mataji, Balai Devi Dasi, Srila Prabhupada explained that you can do the offering by reciting these prayers, Namo Vishnu Padaya, and Namo Mahabhadanyaya, offering obeisances to Lord Chaitanya 3 times, and Namo Brahmanya Devaya 3 times. So it was the well-known practice established and implemented by Srila Prabhupada that the offering of bhoga to the deities was done by using these 3 prayers. Of course, we should mention that this is not simply an automatic ritualistic mantra recitation. It has to be done with love and devotion. What does Krishna say here in the Bhagavad-gītā? Yome bhaktya prayachati, in text number 26. If one offers me with love and devotion, a leaf, a flower, a fruit, the whole point is to offer with love and devotion. Very important point. I had an experience one time in South India. We visited a temple south of Chennai, in those days was called Madras in Tamil Nadu. a very ancient temple. And there was a big pandit from one of the Vaishnava Sampradayas. Very learned fellow. He knew Sanskrit, a couple of languages. He was very fluent in English also. So we had a little discussion with him. We asked him, according to your understanding, what happens to you at the time of death if you think of Krishna? And this fellow explained, oh, you reach Sayujya, you merge with Krishna. And we said, what? That is not the understanding. Krishna does not say this in Bhagavad-gītā, that you merge with the Brahman. You remain the eternal servant of Krishna. You attain a form like Krishna. You serve Krishna either in Vaikuntha or Goloka, but you don't merge with Krishna. But this shows you the depth of misunderstanding that can occur, even though one may belong to an official sampradaya or official line of disciplic succession. And the question is, why do we bring this up? The reason is Srila Prabhupada taught us very specific method of offering the bhoga. This is, Prabhupada explains in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Antilila chapter 5, that when the spiritual master speaks, it's to be understood that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is speaking through him. In other words, when we receive instructions and guidance from Srila Prabhupada, this is like Lord Chaitanya and Krishna telling us directly through Srila Prabhupada how to practice, how to act, how to behave. And that is why devotees are in a very safe position if we just stick to the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. Now, there are some others who have different opinions. They have different interpretations, claiming that Prabhupada said in 1976 to write a book based on the Hari Bhakti Vilas compiled by Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, summarizing the process of deity worship. Now, this book took quite some time to produce, but Prabhupada never gave any instruction to cease and depart and stop the process of offering the bhoga, offering the artik that he had introduced. There is no such instruction anywhere. But some over-intelligent person took it, well, in such and such mat, in such and such sampradaya, they do things different, or in such and such shastra, it is described like this or like that. Well, it's not our position, certainly not my position, to criticize other sampradayas or find fault with them or any other mat. The point that we're trying to make is that Srila Prabhupada was empowered by Lord Chaitanya to bring this movement, and he introduced the offering of bhoga in a very specific way. And this is what should be followed. One should not disobey the Acārya, claiming that under the plea of following Shastra or some other instruction by some other guru or some other sampradaya, he's doing this or that. That is not good. Prabhupada has very specific instruction to spread Krishna consciousness in the Western countries from his Guru Maharaj. Several times in his books, just yesterday, I was reading, our Srila Prabhupada in a Srimad Bhagavatam purport describes how the Acārya introduces Krishna consciousness and adjusts it according to time, place, and circumstances. Because when Prabhupada came to America, as anybody knows, there was no established Vaishnava movement in this country. Everything had to be gradually introduced. Everybody knows the story where Prabhupada was living when he came from Pennsylvania to New York. And very early on in 1966, he was living in the ashram of Dr. Mishra Then he ended up living at some other apartment from place to place. There is one place in one letter, Prabhupada says, I was like a vagabond. Prabhupada is a pure devotee. He is very humble, very modest. Under no circumstances is he ever a vagabond. But he was describing practically how he had no fixed temple. He was living from one place to another, and gradually, eventually got that little temple at 2nd Avenue, 26 2nd Avenue, and the movement started. Devotees gradually came. He introduced the process of deity worship. In the beginning, he was cooking. There's an amazing conversation where Srila Prabhupada described that people were not so much interested in chanting. Prabhupada was describing how he was cooking every day, making dal, rice, and chapatis, and serving the prasadam. And then he trained one of his disciples to cook. Prabhupada sometimes would wait in line in the bathroom because there was no separate quarters. There was one bathroom. So Prabhupada's amazing humility and his great transcendental, amazing patience and tolerance, he gradually introduced all of this method of deity worship, how to do the artik, and this should be respected. It's interesting to note that in these different sampradayas, specifically the Ramanuja Sampradaya, which has been ongoing for 1100 years and even more, and the Madhva Sampradaya, which is ongoing for 950 years, they don't change every 2 weeks. They keep the same system of worship, the same system of arti. They're very specific. Nobody can just change everything out of their own whims. They don't change their books. I once made the argument for those people who claim that we're just editing, we're just adjusting the editing. I says, why don't you take the Vedanta Sutra commentary of Ramanujacharya? You can edit the Sanskrit as you like, and go to Sri Rangam and see who's going to accept who will accept your editing. Do the same thing with Madhvacharya's Brahmasutra Bhashya, or the commentaries of Jayatirtha and Vyasatirtha. Make some change in Sanskrit, because Sanskrit can be described in various ways, and then you can present your edition and see who's going to accept it. You'll be laughed at. Interestingly, in 1975, when I was in Udupi, I was invited by one Brahmin to visit one of their libraries. The Madhvas have the libraries of the writings of all their acharyas. And many of these writings are not on paper. They're on palm leaves. They're very long palm leaves with indelible black ink, and they turn them around. They flip them from one to another. They have the original writing, because Madhvacharya did not write himself. He dictated to one of his disciples, Rishikesh Tirtha, and he would write the commentary dictated by Madhva. They still have the same palm leaf dictation. Still the same there. I once asked one of their Brahmins, did anybody ever try to change? And they put their ears like this, like, oh, no one can touch. No one can touch. But in our movement, maybe, I don't know if it's the American culture or Western culture, never mind American culture, Western culture of changing everything every 2 weeks, this tendency to change even the infallible instruction of such a great exalted personality like Prabhupada is very deep. They're raised in a culture, but they don't have the respect for liberated souls, for great acharyas. This is very important. Some people even had the audacity of filing in Washington, D.C., in the United States Copyright Office, that Prabhupada was just a worker for hire for their corporation. I wonder what level of understanding or where they got this idea from. A spiritually bankrupt idea that the ambassador of Lord Chaitanya, the Nitya Siddha, eternally liberated soul who came from Goloka Vrindavan to spread this movement, was a worker for hire? Where did they get this idea from? This is madness. That's why we see in this purport, very important, if we look at Prabhupada's purport, if you were to take every sentence and put it separate and bullet point every sentence, we used to do that in the Gurukul with the children, with the young teenagers in the Gurukul. Take a purport and totally break it down, each sentence, each Sanskrit word, each Sanskrit quotation, each analogy, just totally analyze it. When you do that with Prabhupada's purport, you'd be amazed how much depth there is. How to understand what is a pure devotee, what is a bona fide acharya, what is a liberated soul, what is a paramamsa. Prabhupada gives so many explanations. Everything is given very clearly, very clearly. Prabhupada says here, in text number 28, in the 4th paragraph, it is said, therefore, by Vaishnava authorities that even the most intelligent person cannot understand the plans and activities of a pure devotee. The exact words are Vaishnavira Kriya Mudra Vigne Nabujaya. A person who is thus always engaged in the service of the Lord, or is always thinking and planning how to serve the Lord, is to be considered completely liberated at present and in the future. Now, when we analyze the activities of Prabhupada, this is a description. Prabhupada is very humbly and indirectly stating his position, that he was a liberated soul, completely liberated soul, never affected by the influence of the material energy. In 1970, when I arrived at the Los Angeles temple from Philadelphia, one devotee came to me and he explained how Srila Prabhupada had just made a statement to one devotee explaining the difference between himself and regular devotees. And Prabhupada said, if I was in a room with 10 naked, very attractive women, I would not be agitated in the least, but all of you would be agitated. That is the difference between a liberated soul and a neophyte. This is very important to understand. The liberated soul is never affected by the influence of the material energy. We see in the Ishopanishad, Prabhupada explains that the one who is a dhira, or sober person, self-controlled person, is never under the influence of the whirlpool of the material nature. What is that? That is the influence of the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance, and even the mode of goodness. Above that is called Vasudev Sattva, complete transcendental goodness, where a person is thinking of Krishna 24 hours a day. I've mentioned a few times how in 1977 in May, I had the inconceivable good fortune for a few weeks at night, for a few hours at night, to be with Srila Prabhupada and massage his feet and assist him if he needed to get anything. And I noticed one thing, sometimes he would take rest, but he never went into a deep sleep of complete ignorance. Occasionally, while he was sleeping, he would chant Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. He would repeat the Maha Mantra. In the Nectar of Devotion, there's a place that great transcendentalists who are beyond the influence of the modes of nature are never under the influence of Maya, either in their sleep, in their dream condition, or in their awake condition. All these three conditions, they're always conscious of the absolute truth. And this was Srila Prabhupada. Now, somebody may try to imitate Prabhupada. That's actually, we have seen historically how different persons have tried to imitate His divine grace, but this is not so advised. Why? Prabhupada has given a very stark warning in the Upadeshamrita. If one imitates a Mahabhagavata without being self-realized, eventually he will become degraded, unquote. Now, Prabhupada did not say immediately or soon. He uses the word eventually, because eventually can be a few moments or several decades. But it is a fact. We have seen this. We have experienced this, that a person should be very, very careful how to behave with the spiritual master. When Prabhupada formed the GBC of ISKCON in 1970 in July, at that point, I had a conversation with one of his personal servants in the prasadam room. He brought some prasadam, and he said, "This is Maha Prasadam." I said, "Well, I know what prasadam is. I know what Mahaprasadam is. What is Maha Prasadam? What is that?" He says, "This is prasadam that has been touched by the lips of a pure devotee, like Srila Prabhupada." Says, "You take this," because I had never had mango before. I was born in Canada. Plenty of apple, pears, and plums, but mango, we didn't grow that there. So I had a little piece of mango offered to Prabhupada. So then I had a conversation with this devotee, and I asked him, "What is this GBC? Why did Prabhupada form a GBC? We know what a temple president is. We know what the secretary, the treasurer, Sankirtan leader, but a GBC was meant for what?" And he explained that Prabhupada was concerned because of his age, that he nominated certain senior devotees to be his representatives, so that in the future his teachings would be carried on without change. His original and pure teachings would be carried on without change. Prabhupada took great care every single night while we were asleep. He would stay up and he would dictate his books. One or two times I had the chance to be at that with Prabhupada while he was dictating his book. He had a very big, huge book. It's like 8-10 inches thick with all the Sanskrit purport of the Acharyas, and another Bengali book with the translation of Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Thakur purports to the Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he very carefully would translate each word. Sometimes he would look at it and meditate. This would go on for hours. And sometimes devotees ask Prabhupada that these books are so wonderful. And Prabhupada would explain that they've been dictated by Krishna. When George Harrison told Srila Prabhupada that the Krishna book was so wonderful, Prabhupada says, yes, that was dictated by Krishna. This is very important, because Srila Prabhupada never wrote these books that they would be obsolete when he left. I've often discussed this conversation Prabhupada had in San Francisco in 1975 when a reporter asked His Divine Grace, "What's going to happen to the movement when you die?" And Prabhupada's immediate reply, "I shall never die. I shall live from my books, and you will utilize." And I'm last night, 4:30 California time, 7:30 Eastern time, we had a discussion with some devotees in Japan. There was 2 Indian devotees. Incidentally, I didn't realize they were very fluent, both in Japanese, English, and several other Indian languages, and they were translating as I was speaking. So it got to the often discussed point about living gurus. I said, well, Prabhupada is still living. First of all, let's discuss this point first. Prabhupada in 1969 in Los Angeles, California, during a Srimad Bhagavatam lecture on January 13th, 1969, made a very ominous statement. What we have heard from the spiritual master, That is living. We have no such thing of thinking that the Guru is dead and gone. In 1975, on the Disappearance Day celebration of his Guru Maharaj, His Divine Grace Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, Prabhupada explained, it is not that he is dead and gone. That is not spiritual understanding, unquote. So we'll leave it there for now. And I wanted to make a statement here before we open the discussion, is that these readings and discussion we have, we try to focus on the text, Srila Prabhupada, and our experiences with Srila Prabhupada, and we often read supplementary material from Prabhupada's lectures. And I realized that when comments are open later on, different devotees will make comments about other devotees or other leaders in the former institution that we used to participate in, which is fine. But it should be understood that these comments do not officially reflect the policy of Hare Krishna Society or the Prabhupada Disciples Association. They're just the comments and opinions or statements of individual devotees. The reason I say this because sometimes devotees will make some statements which can be misconstrued by outsiders. I just want to make it clear. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for that brilliant discussion on the verses of today. And further, we do discuss the Vani incarnation of Prabhupada as the essence of our understanding of this philosophy, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu. And Prabhupada, I was, as you've mentioned on a few occasions, was on a morning walk. We were on a morning walk in Toronto on the beaches. And there was a Indian gentleman, Shoridas. He became initiated, Sushil Arora, who was a friend of mine back then, and he was, asking Prabhupada if he would stay with us forever. He wanted him to never leave Toronto. He was appreciating so much Prabhupada's presence there with us at the opening of the Avenue Road Temple, which was, Prabhupada wrote me a letter. He said, it is a topmost triumph that you've got this building for Krishna. Now use it for preaching work and spreading Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada answered Sushil Arora, Shori. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, he told him, he said, I'm always present with you in my books. So by constantly reading the literature that he left us, we're in contact with his sound vibration, Vani incarnation, because this is a yoga practice. It is not a mundane practice. It's a transcendental practice of spiritual life. And the most potent sense is the sense of hearing. Of all the senses that we have, the ability to hear is the gateway to the spiritual realm. And a lot of people, they think that it's more important to have been with Prabhupada in his Vapu incarnation, his Vapu presence. I'm going to mention Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu how sometimes when we went to Mayapur or Vrindavan for the annual festivals, when Prabhupada was present with us, such a glorious time actually for many of us, amazing. But nonetheless, when we were there, for example, in 1973, when we were in Mayapur for those of you on the call that were there, you might recall most of us got very ill. It was either due to some kind of food contamination from the water or whatever. So many of us were very, very ill, and we could barely get up and do things. So we would go to the class. I remember going to the classes every morning and in Sridham Mayapur and hearing Prabhupada speak, but it was hard even for many of us to even be able to stay conscious. We were like so tired and jet lagged and not feeling well and fever, etc. So we had the personal association of Prabhupada, but it was hard to really pay attention, let's say. And a lot of people would fall asleep. So my point is this, that nowadays we have this facility to hear Prabhupada in his wonderful lectures. And you can go back to those days and find them online and listen to them, and they become very inspiring, and you can be more attentive and more aware of what's being said at this point in time as compared to when we were there back in the original time with Prabhupada and hearing him speak then. So there's a great opportunity for all of us to really get fixed up in the philosophy of Krishna consciousness through utilizing these tools for our own spiritual advancement. And also, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, as you know, Prabhupada said that it actually was very dangerous to associate with the spiritual master on a personal basis because of familiarity. And familiarity breeds contempt, Prabhupada explained. And a lot of these devotees, unfortunately, as we saw it unfold back then, developed this contempt for Prabhupada even while he was personally present with us. A lot of contempt. And not to mention any names. If you study the history, you'll see how these people were deviating from the philosophy because of contempt, because of envy. I was discussing with Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu last night how a lot of these people were envious of Prabhupada and his position and his role. And even while he was personally present, they were trying to usurp him from that role and try to run the society because he wasn't very, they felt, adept in doing what he was doing. And here in this purport, so even amongst in the Gaudiya Math, there were people that never thought that Prabhupada was doing the right thing. His own godbrothers, for example, he was conducting marriages. This wasn't acceptable by them. He was giving sannyas to Western people, initiation to Western people. So a lot of his godbrothers were criticizing him. So I'll just go back to the purport here at text 28. Anyone who has no other interest but to dedicate his life to the service of the Lord is actually a sannyasi. Just go down there, Prabhu. Rupesh, down into the middle, the first paragraph. Thank you. Anyone who has no interest but to dedicate his life to the service of the Lord is actually a sannyasi. Such a person always thinks of himself as an eternal servant, dependent on the supreme will of the Lord. We know that when reading his diaries, he reveals that. As such, whatever he does it for the benefit of the Lord. Whatever action he performs it as a service to the Lord. He does not give serious attention to the fruitive activities or prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas. For ordinary persons, it's obligatory to execute the prescribed duties mentioned in the Vedas. But although a pure devotee who is completely engaged in the service may sometimes appear to go against the prescribed Vedic duties, actually it is not so. So here we're seeing that Prabhupada is very politely explaining that he's engaging in the service of Krishna according to time and circumstance. So when he was in New York, beginning the movement, he was doing it according to time, as Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu explained, according to time, place, and circumstance. And he was in a position to do that because he had undertaken this adventure of spreading Krishna consciousness globally by traveling on the freighter to New York and starting this movement in the most difficult situations. So these devotees that became familiar with him, that were criticizing him, they're sometimes using vulgar terms against him, were doing it because they were offensive, very offensive. And that offensive mentality, it seemed to continue on even after Prabhupada, even more so offensive after Prabhupada's demise and disappearance in November 14th, 1977. So the most important thing is to associate with the pure devotee in his Vani incarnation. And this way we'll be safe and protected from committing any offenses based on contempt. Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, further, if you could explain.
I just want to read a statement from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 31, Text 48. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 31, Text 48. This is very important. Srila Prabhupada, it is sometimes misunderstood that if one has to associate with persons engaged in devotional service, he will not be able to solve the economic problem. To answer this argument, it is described here that one is to associate with liberated persons not directly, physically, but by understanding through philosophy and logic the problems of life. It is stated here, samyak darshanaya buddhya. One has to see perfectly, and by intelligence and yogic practice, one has to renounce this world. That renunciation can be achieved by the process recommended in the second chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is very important. Another conversation took place in London, England, on September 3rd, 1971. London, England, on September 3rd, 1971. Indian lady, can the death of a spiritual master take to us? Is that spiritual master still guiding after the death? Prabhupada, yes. Just like Krishna is guiding us. Similarly, spiritual master will guide. We are being guided by Krishna, by the Bhagavad-gītā. Although Krishna is not physically present, so-called, Krishna is present always. But even if we say that Krishna is not physically present, as he was present before Arjuna, still his book, Bhagavad-gītā, is there. And that Bhagavad-gītā is non-different from Krishna. Krishna and Krishna's teaching the same, absolute. That is absolute truth. Krishna and Krishna's here form the same. It is not that we are making show of offering Krishna some food. No, we are offering directly to Krishna and he's eating. Krishna being absolute, he can perform through anything provided we are sincere and serious. This is a very important point. I'm going to read a few paragraphs from a lecture that Prabhupada gave in New York on December 19, 1966, New York, 19 December 1966. This pertained to Bhagavad-gītā verses chapter 9, text 27, 28, 29. Yat karoshi yadashnasi yajjuhosi dadasi yat tapasyasi kanteya tat kurushva madarpanam. Srila Prabhupada. Now here is a general prescription for all people for transcendental realization of Krishna consciousness. Yat karoshi. Whatever you do, it doesn't matter. You do it for Krishna. And how to do it, we discussed in the last meeting. That you are doing something. Simply change the consciousness that you are doing for Krishna. Nobody is inactive. It is not possible. You cannot be inactive even for a second. Because as living entities, our position is that we shall be always active. Don't you see? As soon as I'm out of this body, the body has no more activities. All activities stopped. Again, when I enter another body, my activities from the womb of my mother begins. At the age of 7 months only, the child becomes active. So spirit soul is always active. So all these activities should be dovetailed in Krishna consciousness. Yat karoshi, whatever you do. Shubha shubha phalerevam mokshyase karma bandhane sannyasa yoga yuktatma vimukto mam upeshyasi. Now here is a neutralization formula. Whatever we are doing, it has got some reaction. If we do pious acts, there is good reaction. If we do impious action, there is reaction also. So every action has got its reaction. That we can experience in this material world, that if we eat more, the reaction will be that for 2 days there will be indigestion. Similarly, this material world is so situated that every action has got its reaction. But Krishna says that if you act in Krishna consciousness for Krishna, then there will be no reaction. Shubha shubha phalerevam mokshase karma bandhane. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Okay, excellent. I believe Roy is on the call. How are you, Prabhu? Have you got a microphone you can click on?
Hello.
Roy? Yes.
Yes.
Is it Bhakta Roy, or are you initiated, or?
No, I never was initiated, but I've been in the movement for a long time. I've been at New Vrindavan, worked at the devotee business, so-called Touchstone, Sterling Art. I don't know if you heard of that.
Oh, yes, I'm very familiar with New Vrindavan, actually. Go ahead. You have
We
a
moved
question
out there.
or pardon?
No, we moved out there a long time ago, but I bought property by the temple because I didn't want to live in the temple at first because I didn't think I was qualified, and I had a family.
Well, that was a good move. I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah,
So,
right. It comes out to be true, right? That's why I've never taken initiation, because of the what happened in the movement.
Fair enough. Really, and just so you know, we feel that anyone that's with us is basically a Prabhupada disciple. Formality is there if you have a certain sort of standard that you want to follow. But as far as being with us and being a follower of Prabhupada, that's sufficient as well. Just follow the process. That's real initiation. You had a comment or a question? I see your hands up there on the screen.
No, maybe I'm
Huh?
not too sure how to work this thing here.
Well, that's okay.
Where do you raise your hand or whatever on there?
Well, they have a thing there, raise your hand at the bottom of the screen. So if you click it, your hand comes up on the front of by your face there. So that in that way I can see if someone has a question or they want to make a comment. So that's all it is. But we're happy to have you on the call with us, and we appreciate your attendance. And by all means, anytime, if you want to reach any of us, you can, and just keep coming to the classes. That's as simple as it is.
Yeah, I appreciate it because we don't get much association anymore now that we don't go to the temple in New Taliban because of what happened. They even tried chasing us out of there one time because we had a few of us who were trying to, talk the correct way, but they wouldn't have it.
It's we're okay. We've got a good system here, and at least personally for myself, I so much enjoy the classes and the readings and discussions. I sit most of the time, like all of us, and hear, and it's just like today's class. It's just remarkable for me to get this experience. So I know we're all sharing that same transcendental bliss from good association. If you chant your rounds and follow the principles like, according to Prabhupada's directions, you're getting the full injection of transcendental knowledge and experience through this process. It's like it's said here today, everything that you do, you offer it to Krishna. So we're taking these tools and engaging them in Krishna's service, and we're all enjoying the transcendental experience. We have Gauramani Das on the class today. I was hoping he could maybe say a bit about himself, and if he has any comments or questions, he could bring them forward. Gauramani, whereabouts are you?
Gauramani, come va?
Everything very good, very good. I found trying to be here with you. That is saving me. Yes, I have no particular comments to do. I just enjoying the explanation you are giving us. So
no problem. Are you in Mayapur?
Yeah, yes, I'm still here.
Okay, now I connect the dots there. Thank you very much, Prabhu. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Ron Singh in Sacramento. Maybe you could mention about your upcoming program with us.
Oh, yes, Prabhu. We're celebrating Govardhan Puja in Sacramento. Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, I think it's November 12th, right?
That's good. Well, the Govardhan Puja is like the following day or Tuesday, but we'll be observing on the Sunday. And then after the program in the morning, we discuss how to try to go on the public Harinam, some brief Samkirtan in public to chant the holy name. So it should be very interesting.
Yes, we're right now in Sacramento. We're just kind of getting set up. We got a couple of devotees. We're going to have Sankirtan today. It's very good weather now in Sacramento. So we're going to a park and we're going to chant. And then after that, we're going to go to that temple that you sent the pictures of. We're going to go chant there. Right. It's right next to my house.
Oh, nice.
Those pictures you sent. Yeah. So it's like 2 miles away from my house. And they've welcomed us to come chant and have programs there. So as we develop things here, we'll progress incrementally.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Bhaktivedanta house has beautiful effulgent deities of Gaur-Nitai. They're just like very, very attractive deities and a beautiful altar. It's like a very, very sweet. We're going to take pictures of it, make sure that it's on the website and available. It's just very, very sweet deities.
We'll be broadcasting that program from Sacramento, everyone, on November 12th. And Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, our esteemed speaker, will be giving the talk that evening and giving us more insights on the Govardhan Puja festival. Just as we're winding up the broadcast today, I see that our friend Puranjana is with us. He's got that beautiful sketch of the gopis, and very much appreciated by all of us his amazing artistic talents. Prodasham Nishu, I'm the ability in man. Maybe you could share some insights with us this morning at the Bhagavad-gītā discussion, Paranjana, in terms of the discussion that we had.
Haribo.
Haribo.
Jai, glories to Prabhupada.
Glories to Prabhupada.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand this principle of familiarity breeds contempt. This is the whole root of how we fell to the material world. We were overly familiar with Krishna. We thought Krishna is not so important. We're more important. We can do what Krishna's doing. And that's what happened in ISKCON. People thought, well, Prabhupada wears a robe. He has a danda. I wear a robe and have a danda, and I'm another Prabhupada. It's very simple. So, and this happened when Krishna was here. Pandraka was a demon, and he dressed like Krishna. And he thought he was Krishna. He thought he was another Vishnu. And when Krishna saw him, he just, laughed hysterically. He thought this was very funny. So that's what happens. We think we're gonna fly when we can't walk. That's a big problem for the jiva souls. Us jiva souls, we're very limited, and we really have no idea how limited we are. But we become overly ambitious. Prabhupada said that ambition is poisonous. We want something that we're not qualified to have. Just like we're working in a bank, we think we're qualified to take the money. No, you are not. You are not qualified. So I think that's an important principle that we always have to remember, and that's why Lord Chaitanya says, always be humble, be lower than a straw in the street, because as soon as you think you're more than that, you run into trouble. So, and there's also an English saying, if you only go up to the first step on the ladder and you fall, you don't hurt yourself too far. But if you go way up the ladder, you can really damage yourself when you do fall down. So don't go too high, when you're not able or qualified to do that. That's something that a lot of devotees have not understood. But we're making a lot of progress. I have a good group of people that are, we're kind of coming to the conclusion that Prabhupada is a guru by neti, not this, not that, with a lot of people, It's not that guy, no, he's not a guru. That guy, no. And I was talking to my friend Pachatosh, his wife just wrote a paper recently saying that in ISKCON, the gurus aren't following the process given by Prabhupada. Many gurus aren't following. And so I said to Pachatosh, I said, well, if they're not following, then they're not gurus. Well, why is Urmila saying the gurus are not following? They are not gurus if they're not following. So again, we're trying to overstate someone's position when they're not eligible or qualified to do that. And that is the biggest mistake that we made originally. We overstated ourselves when we were with Krishna, and we ended up here. And then we just keep doing the same mistake over again, and it never works. So that's my 2 cents for today.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. That was very profound. And we really appreciate your participation in our group sessions of reading and chanting the glories of the Lord in these classes that we're holding weekly without fail. And tomorrow we'll be having Srimad Bhagavatam at 10 a.m. So we're going through all the main books right now: Chaitanya Charitamrita, Bhagavad-gītā As It Is, and Srimad Bhagavatam. So we're getting a full diet of spiritual information by the grace of Lord Chaitanya. And I just wanted to remind everyone, we are also going to be publishing our Vyas Puja book. We're going through the process of finding out the most economical way to print the books, and then people be able to get them and enjoy all the articles at the beginning of the book and see all the nice dedicated offerings to Srila Prabhupada that were written by our members. And just to wind up, I want to thank everyone for being a part of the programs that we're having. And please share this opportunity with other people that you feel are like-minded in terms of their point of view in regards to the spiritual process of bhakti yoga. This is the birds of a same feather flock together, and we do want to expand the number of people that are participating, and with your help, we can grow this into a very big organization of sincere Prabhupada disciples. That is who we are. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We're going to move. Thank you, Rupesh Chawan, for helping us today with our production. We appreciate your participation. Whereabouts are you, Rupesh? Are you in Bangalore, India?
I'm in Mumbai.
Oh, you're in Bombay. So this is a global broadcast. And Rupesh will be helping us again tomorrow with the production. So we'll look forward to seeing everybody at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time here in Canada and the US, and at your particular time zone accordingly. All glories to the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Let us go to the Kirtan. Rupesh.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Vijay